Do you agree with that analysis, Negosi?
Definitely, I agree. You know, the West has failed to make a sensitive pressure that could restrict the government. They're always, you know, the West has considered the regime as an ally in the war against terrorism. And because of that, whatever the government does, whatever Meles Zenawi does, the West doesn't bother at all.
They turn a blind eye.
Yeah,
okay.
Because they have they usually for democratic, for human rights. They stand for democracy. They say they stand for human rights. But when they see the atrocities committed, and they are recording it in their country reports, the United States State Department report clearly shows what is happening in the country. But the UK government also files about the country report about Ethiopia. But here, the next day you could hear that they are giving him sufficient aid in different forms.
Okay, well, let's talk about the Comprehensive Peace Agreement, because we have opposition groups, obviously, who want the situation to be resolved. We've got the Western Somali Liberation Front, which signed a peace agreement, I believe. And then you've got the Ogadeni National Liberation Front, which refused. As far as you are aware, what is the current state of play with regard to this comprehensive peace agreement? Or is it just a useless piece of paper?
It's a useless piece of paper. The Ogaden National Liberation Front, the government didn't sign with the right representatives and right organization. Simply, it picked few individuals. It's just to cheat the situation in the Somalis as well, as if the government is doing its best to come into terms for peaceful solution. But it's rather cheating. It is deceiving the international community, and as well, you know, the Ogaden, why should they then fight after the peace agreement is signed? Why do problems arise there? Why do last time the World Food Program employees they were killed, and some of them were even abducted? All these things are happening in that region. Why did the government refuse? Why did it deny the access to journalists to go and see the area?
Right. I mean, and there are also reports I've read about, you know, there are Chinese involvement in the area because they're helping with the prospecting of the oil, and some of them suffered in the crossfire of this type of conflict. What comment would you want to make?
Well, I just wanted to intervene there because I think I have a slightly different perspective to my colleague Negosi there. I think, you know, the Ogaden National Liberation Front, I think they made a mistake. You know, they should have been part of this peace agreement. All they did was they sat behind and, you know, they sort of dismissed the breakaway faction that, you know, took positive steps to try and sign this peace agreement. I mean, at some point, we can't just keep all fighting. You know, it's easier to blame the Meles government, you know, that, you know, the perpetrators backed by U.S. forces. But I think we also have to try to take stock, look at ourselves in the mirror and say, do we want the good of our people?
Let me make one thing clear.
Let me
make one thing clear, Richard.
Great.
The ONLF didn't refuse coming for a peace agreement, a peaceful agreement, or for peace solution. But the Ethiopian government would like to hold the discussion under its own, whereas there is, in the absence of independent group, you cannot make an agreement with the government.
Well,
and
you have
they have requested repeatedly in an independent third country, they are ready to make to discuss with the Ethiopian government to stop the war and come to a resolution.
But does the Zenawi regime actually recognize the ONLF as any kind of credible representative of the region? Because part of the ONLF's largest complaint in recent years has been that the country is being prospected for oil by all kinds of parties and they were not consulted because it's their land. They perceive it that way. It is their land.
It's their land. But the ONLF is expressing its interest to come to sit with the government and solve the problem.
Well, but the opportunity was presented, and they, they didn't take advantage of it. This is where I have a problem with this rebel movement.
The Ethiopian government is always, the Meles government always would like to live on forceful acts and deceivings. Never, ever. You know, we do have other opposition groups with whom the government has made agreement, but the outcome is completely opposite of that.
Okay. Let's look at where we stand today. You know, hundreds of thousands of people are dying, or they are going to die in that region. Yeah, and there is a deadlock. There is no communication. There is no discussion. There is no attempt to try and come together. That's where I feel the ONLF made a big mistake. They should have taken the offer from. I mean, I'm no friend of Meles's. I'm no friend of his. I know that he. A recent report calls him the most hated guy in the African continent. That's how that's much reputation he has. But I think if a bad person makes the effort, obviously he's under a lot of pressure, from the White House, quite a lot. Forget about the White House not coming forward to say anything, but they know that the world is watching. And if you look at the letter from the U.S. Senator and Barbara Boxer and co, it's about 7 senators who recently wrote to the Obama administration. They were quite clear in their letter. Even though they said, yes, they do acknowledge that the injustice is coming from both sides. But, the greater injustice was placed on Meles's government and the U.S., support.
Well, let's go to someone, actually, in Asmara, who has a perspective maybe perhaps closer to the ground with regard to what, the ONLF is doing and all the other so-called rebel groups who are fighting in the region. What are you seeing in that area? Do you see any potential for unification amongst the groups that are fighting the Zenawi regime?
Yes, actually there's been a whole series of gatherings here in Asmara where national unity government, the potential national unity government to when Meles goes, because it's just a matter of time before Meles Zenawi is going to be run out of the country. Yeah. But the thing is, Meles Zenawi is conducting a scorched earth policy in the Ogaden. He's got his paramilitaries going around and massacring people, burning crops, stealing cattle, murdering people. I mean, he's probably the most criminal regime in the world, and on top of that, he's militarily blocking food aid to the region. So, but I do see a potential here. There's been a number of very far-flung ethnic-based guerrilla fighters that have been coming to Asmara to talk about what, the future of Ethiopia and how to keep Ethiopia from disintegrating, when Meles Zenawi leaves.
Okay, well,
I think
Thomas, sorry to interrupt you. I mean, do you feel that the lack of unity between the opposition groups is something he's taking full advantage of? Or is he so powerful in terms of the money he has, the military resources he has, it doesn't matter what the opposition is doing?
No, I think it's just a matter of time. Meles Zenawi's days are numbered.
Okay.
The countdown starting. I think it's just a matter of time. It may be a few years, but it's just a matter of time. And the question is to establish a national unity government to make sure that Ethiopia doesn't splinter into a lot of small states.
Okay, well, as we round up, literally in the last 2 minutes of the program, and we're talking about a national unity government, the potential for it at any rate. I mean, what are your thoughts, in summary, on what way forward you would like to see in the next few years?
In Ethiopia, the opposition groups, the government has to have the willing to sit together with all the opposition groups and discuss the matter, and then the international these donors and Western countries.
Do you think it will take an international input? What about the African Union, or is that discredited in this kind of process?
No, the African Union, I don't think so. They are not. I mean, they are not doing something meaningful. Wherever there is a problem, you see their decision, like the one they are taking in Libya, and I don't see any powerful institution to solve that. It's only the government as well as the opposition groups. They have to come together, and they have to, and the international fact-finding missions, an independent fact-finding mission has to be established as well.
Is that likely to happen, do you think, as part of your final comments? What would you like to see?
It may be a long way ahead of us all, but I think that one thing we need to start looking at is, looking at national interests first before personal interests. I think there's a lot of personal interest in this Ogaden matter. Obviously, there are huge deposits of oil there. You talked about the Chinese loitering around, obviously. We also know that it's got about 4 trillion cubic feet of gas, in that area. Huge wealth in, resources there. America will always defend American interests. They do it with Yoweri Museveni. They support the regime because they're supporting them against the failed state of Somalia and the potential terrorists. So we have to defend our own interests.
Sorry to interrupt you on that note of defending our own interests. How is the question? We'd like to know what you think. And that's it for today. Thanks to all of you who've been sending comments to us. What are your constructive suggestions? Email africa@presstv.co.uk, or you can text +44 78 0000 8086. Messages are charged at your local operator rates. A huge thank you to today's guests. They were Mr. Negusi Gama, Richard Chutezo, and from Asmara on the phone, Mr. Thomas C. Mountain. Join Henry next week for another edition of Africa Today. But from today's team, it's goodbye for now.